Hey y'all, this is Amy from The Wholehearted Life, and we are going to talk about adoption grants today. So I hope you'll stick around and I'll give you just a few tips that might be helpful.
These skies have a different light, why noise that keeps me up at night.
Okay, so welcome to our channel. As you already probably figured out, we are a family that has grown through adoption, so welcome. And I hope that we can answer questions for you along the way if you're in the journey for adoption or you're just curious about it. This specific video is going to be about grants, and I hope that I can just give you a few small tips that would be helpful. I will tell you straight up, we applied for some grants that we did not get, and we applied for some grants that we did get. So I've not cracked the code on exactly what you're supposed to do to get a grant, but I do think I learned a few things along the way that were helpful and just made it a little bit of an easier process. I will tell you too, if you're just looking for funding advice in general for adoption, I created an entire video about that and I'll link it somewhere for you. I wrote a post about it as well, a blog post, so that if you want to read some of the stuff, you don't feel like you have to watch and take notes, it'll just all be there for you. So I hope that this video will be helpful to you and I can help you at least understand the grant process a little bit better and give you just a few tips about how to go about it.
Hey y'all, I've got to pass this along to you guys. This isn't sponsored. I just wanted to tell you about it. My family tried HelloFresh and I cannot believe it was so simple. It got us out of a rut of eating the same meals all the time. We've done a couple of them now. And from being a new customer, they shared a link with me that I can pass along and it gives you guys a huge discount. I think it's $120 off. So you might as well just click the link and investigate it. They have all types of meals. And again, this isn't sponsored. I just wanted to pass along a good deal. So try HelloFresh, guys.
Okay, so if you are in the adoption process or you're considering it or whatever, you've probably noticed a few things. One, so much paperwork. It's so much paperwork. And of course, that's understandable because you want it to be legal and you don't want there to be child trafficking or anything weird. There needs to be lots of investigation. There needs to be, you need to be questioned if you're wanting to adopt. They need to know that you're a stable home and have reliable income and you don't have all this craziness in your life that you shouldn't be a parent. So I get why there's basically a little bit of an investigation and a lot of paperwork when it comes to adopting. I get that. And then the other piece is that it costs money. And again, I said in my other video that was longer, that had more just a broad topic of raising funds. I can't change that adoption costs money. So I'm not going to let that barrier keep our family from adopting. And I hope you won't either. And so let's talk about grants and get you a grant. Let's get the money to get the kids home. Isn't it exhausting looking for these things? You find one and then, oh gosh, we don't meet this requirement or that. There are hundreds of grants, but I found some that are pretty popular and then some that are a little more obscure that I just found in my own adoption journey. So that is one thing I've done for you is a list of grants with the link. They're all listed below. So hopefully you can apply to the ones that I found for you. If you know of a grant that's not listed there, will you put it in the comments and I'll add it and that list can just grow and grow and grow. So again, check out my list on the link below. If the ones you know about are not there, please tell me and I'll add it. And then we can just have this whole resource for all these different families who are looking for grants and it'll just grow. Okay, so one major tip I'm going to tell you is to try to do your grant applications at the same time, or at least the same season. And the reason I say this is because just like everything else that's hard, it's better just to knock it out rather than oh gosh, I've got another grant to work on. Oh gosh, I got another grant to work on. Because that fatigue I've noticed is reflected in how my application turns out. That paperwork fatigue, it shows up in my language and how I say things, and the enthusiasm of the adoption doesn't come through, I think. So I would say try to say this is grant season. And I get that grants have different deadlines throughout the year, but it doesn't mean you can't do most of the paperwork beforehand. So my suggestion is pick a season. Okay, the month of May or the whatever month, these 3 weeks are going to be a grant application time. And there's a few reasons for that. One, just the fatigue of it's always hanging over your head. There's another grant to apply for. So that's my suggestion, is to do them all around the same time. So you can just do all the copies and paperwork at the same time. This might be a silly tip because it's so straightforward, but when you're in that season of grant applying, get your supplies. Do you need a Sharpie? Do you need manila envelopes? Do you need to go to make a bunch of photocopies somewhere? When you sit down and you want to knock these things out and you're missing a stupid envelope, or you don't have a photocopy of your license, or whatever the requirement is, that stuff can just derail your energy. And so my suggestion is, if you need to make photocopies, if you need to get a manila envelope, if you need to get stamps or whatever, the list might be to think through that stuff before you even sit down and do the application. I know you may have to look through the application to know what that list is, but to me, that is when I can get totally like discouraged, because I'm like, I'm working so hard. I want these out today, or I want them out this week. And now I have to stop everything and go get like office supplies. Like, I can get discouraged in my energy towards something like this. If your home study is not complete, you're going to need that 100% completed and signed off on by someone from someone who legally can sign off on it before most grants will even look at your application. So that's one thing that you can do as far as just get several copies of it, get them printed, stapled, ready to go, and that can go in your different grant packets. So that's my suggestion, is get all that stuff before you even really get going. So then you don't really have an excuse. It really is just answer the questions and stick it in the envelope. It's not like it's going to get drug out because you're missing some piece of the puzzle. My next tip is to learn the grant. And this will take a little bit of effort on your end, a little bit of reading, to go and read about the grant. Why was it founded? What questions are they asking? Are you actually answering their questions or what you want them to know? Because I will tell you, some of the grants really care about your financial situation, you as the adoptive family. Are you guys financially in a place to adopt? You're stable but need more help. Are you struggling? Like, they want to know your story, or they want to know, why are you called to adopt? Like, why are you supposed to meet an adoptive family? They really care about you as the family adopting the child. And then other grants, they really don't care too much about why you feel called to adoption. That's great for you. They want to know the story of the child. Is the child in foster care and they need a forever home? Is the child going to go to foster care if they don't have a forever home? Is this child in danger, or maybe you have the sibling of this child and you're going to be able to unite those siblings? They want the story of the child, not why you want to be called to adopt. And so be very careful that you answer the questions they're asking, why they were founded. They are looking for certain things. Because I can even do that. I get off on the tangent of like, oh, here's the birth family story, and this is why the child's being placed for adoption, and we feel so called to that. And then it's like I quickly get there, and they didn't ask me that. And so if I want to add a sentence or two, that's fine. But I would say really focus on why that grant was founded and who founded it. Why did they even want to put it together? What's their values? What are they looking for? And be really clear on answering what they're asking you rather than what you just would like to tell them about your story. My next tip is, once you have filled out the applications, have someone read it. And it would be great if you could have another adoptive family read it, another adoptive mom or dad, someone who's received a grant. Just have them read through it. First of all, you just want it to sound nice. You want your grammar to be right. You want, this would be perfect. You're not being graded on that. But just that sometimes when people have read, like I've had some people read through my stuff, they're like, add a little more emotion, because I'm such a facts person. They're like, use a more descriptive words. And like, that's helpful feedback. You might not know that about yourself, and to add just a little bit more description to it might just make it come alive a little more. So before you hit send on the thing on your website for an application, or before you stick that thing in the mail, have someone read it for you with fresh new eyes, who could just give you a smidge of feedback. It might not be much change, but it might really help your application to stick out. My next tip is, don't get discouraged. The first several grants we applied for were no's, and I'll say everyone's no was quite nice, and it was not now, or you don't currently meet the requirements, or you don't currently show need, or we don't have enough funding to do as many families that applied. And it can be discouraging when you're trying to meet this feels like an insurmountable goal, and to get those no's can be kind of a gut punch. Don't get down to the dumps. Don't totally give up. It is possible to fund this adoption. If grants don't work out for your family, there are other ways to fund your adoption. So don't let yourself get so down in the dumps about it and discouraged. Try to be encouraged that even if you get some no's, there might be a yes around the corner, because that's what happened for our family. And even if you get more no's, it's not the only way to bring your child home. My last tip is to remember that who you are writing to is a person. I think that sometimes when you're doing something so formal, like a grant application, or like you're applying for a job, you kind of feel like you're going in and like, this person has all this power, and they're not real people. When the people who are opening your packet or opening your email application are real people with beating hearts, and they're on this board, or they founded this grant, or they care about adoption because of their hearts. And so I would say write in such a way, share your story and the child you're adopting's story like you're sitting down having a conversation. If you're emotional about it, let that emotion pour out through your words. If nothing else, even if you don't get the grant, you're sharing your story and your child's story with people who care about it. And so I know that doesn't fund your adoption, but it will bless them and it will bless you in sharing it. And so I would really encourage you to be a little vulnerable in your application and to write it kind of like you're telling someone about your story, because it can feel quite formal. Again, you got to answer, like I mentioned before, you got to answer what they're asking, but even in that, be a little vulnerable and remember that you're writing it almost like if you could even name the person to make it more personal to the reader of your grant, and that it's not very sterile. That's my last tip, is just to remember that these are people, real people, reading over your application, and to write it in such a way that it would be compelling to someone sitting and reading about your life. I hope that this is just a few tips about adoption grants. I have more. I just didn't want to get the video too long. If you would like to hear a few more, or you have a question about adoption grants, please reach out. I hope you aren't discouraged. I hope that you are encouraged. And if you want more adoption funding ideas, I dream about them, because I want children to have a home. Every child deserves to have a family, and money should not be the reason they don't have a family. So if I can do anything to help that barrier be removed, then I want to do it. Just know, I pray you get the grant. I pray the funds come, and I pray that your baby or your child that you're hoping to adopt is in your family and home so very soon. Amy Sylvester with The Wholehearted Life. Please come back. I'm happy to answer your questions. I'd love to hear about your adoption journey. Stay in touch.